Hello and welcome. We're so glad that you're here for the Graph for All $1 Million Challenge, Submissions 101, how to set yourself up for success. We have Navira and John who are going to be presenting, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Kaylee, for the introduction. I lead strategic growth for community here at TigerGraph, work with the developer relations team, and I'm also the program lead for this Graph for All $1 Million Challenge, and really excited to be here today and go over what the submission process looks like and be here to answer your questions.
My name is John Herkey. If you've been in the community or been to the office hours, you've probably met me before. I lead the developer relations team here at TigerGraph. So this session is really about everything you need to be successful. And we're going to walk you through step by step of every single process. And with that, I'm going to pass it back to Navira.
Great, thanks. Go ahead, Navira. Okay, well, this is the boring stuff, so it'll get over quickly. So some of the housekeeping items, although everyone's muted, you can ask questions at any time with the Q&A. And also, if you have any technical issues, just go through chat and we'll make sure that we can fix it to our best of our ability. The webinar is going to be recorded and we'll send out the slides at the end. And again, we're really excited you're here. So with that, I'm going to pass over the presentation to John and Navira. Thanks.
Awesome. So what I wanted to cover first was revisiting what you're building at the end of the day, and then we'll kind of go into each of these submission requirements in a bit more detail. So what we're asking contestants to do is to solve a problem, a real problem that can be used with Graph, more specifically to be used with TigerGraph. So there's many different ways of approaching this. We've actually partnered with various domain experts from around the world to curate 12 various problem statements that focus on problems, like real problems that we face in a wide variety of areas, leading from climate change to healthcare to even transportation. However, we are really passionate about keeping this as an open challenge. And so you also have the option of designing your own problem statement and solving for that. Because at the end of the day, it's all about innovation in graph use case and solving your everyday problems in a meaningful way. So what are you building? You're actually building a graph solution using TigerGraph to derive and uncover transformative hidden insights behind the data, so you can use machine learning and all the other applications to solve an interesting problem. The deadline is fast approaching. April 20th at 11:45 p.m. Eastern will be your, after that, the window to submit or edit your submissions will be done. So what you need to be submitting is to tell us what your problem statement is. What problem are you solving for? You can either choose one of the 12 problem statements that are predefined, or you can design your own problem statement by choosing Graph for Better X. We're going to dive into more what that means in the next slide over, but just wanted to say that. Number 2, you have to submit a video that demonstrates how your solution works. Number 3 is going to be submitting the actual link to give us access to your GitHub repo. And number 4 is you have to explain your project strength in each of our 4 judging criteria. The slide deck will be shared with you afterwards. So there's links here at the bottom section that will take you directly to the areas that will give you more of the details. So now let's dive a little bit more into each of the submission steps or the asks that we have of you when you're submitting. Number 1 is when you declare your problem statement. I wanted to visit this Graph for Better X because we've noticed many of you have decided to choose this as an option. So when you choose a Graph for Better X, please keep in mind that what we're looking for is a detailed outline of the problem you're actually trying to solve for, because your solution won't seem as powerful until you clearly define what is the problem you've identified that needs to get solved, and why is this an important problem to solve for in the first place, and what is your vision for getting there? How does your solution going to help solve this problem? So if you want to have a more detailed overview of what we're looking for in your problem statement definition, here is a link that will take you to the DevPost site, and it literally spells out how you need to write your problem statement description if you are choosing graph or better X. So I just want to say that. Number two, when you're submitting your video, this ultimately is your opportunity to show off your project. So please demonstrate how your graph solution actually solves the challenge. Now, we do have an ask that your video be within the 3-minute limit. It will be up to the judge's discretion to view videos that are way longer. So if your video is 10 minutes, I can say that the judge is going to be willing to look at a video at that length when we've asked people to kind of keep it within the 3-minute mark. That, you know, we have to go through a lot of submissions, so be thoughtful on the length. However, if there's a lot you want to say and you just can't finish that 3-minute video, one alternative solution is you could add some of that detail in your GitHub repository directly if you want to make sure that you want to highlight some more information. Number three is, you know, you'll have to submit a link to your GitHub code repo. Make sure we do have access to that. You give us proper access because we will be looking at your code. We have to see if your code works and it makes sense. Please make sure you do a detailed README. This is an excellent place, like I said, to add additional information you just couldn't fit in elsewhere in your submission process. And finally, be really thoughtful on how you answer those questions about the 4 judging criteria. Be thoughtful on your written defense of your projects and back up your claims with actual facts and statistics to just strengthen your submission. I guarantee if you spend some time really thinking about the merits of your project and how it addresses the problem statement, it will help elevate your solution or your submission for sure. And then finally, I'm sure many of you are curious, you know, what are the judges ultimately looking for? So the 4 judging criterion are the impactfulness, you know, the degree to which your solution is improving the world's, like improving people's lives. So be thoughtful about, you know, how many people are you reaching at the end of the day? How many organizations are you helping? Think about the level of social economic impact your solution has. Also think about the degree to which your solution addresses the underlying root problem that you have identified, whether it's a problem statement you've chosen or whether it's your own problem statement for Graph for Better X. It's really important that you also kind of cover how impactful is your solution in addressing that root problem. Number 2, when you're thinking about the innovativeness, here we're trying to see how you approach this problem. Did you have a new way to frame an existing complicated problem? Or were you resourceful in overcoming those challenges? So tell us how your solution was innovative in using graph application, or, you know, what were some of the creative ways you approached this problem? Number 3, when we think about the ambitiousness of your project, here we're wanting to see how far did you push the envelope. We're trying to see ultimately, how did you design your schema? You know, how big was your graph? How many nodes and edges did you have? Functional scope. Did you add a lot of cool features? If you notice from our resources section, we have a huge list of resources for you to take advantage of. We also have our developer portal. Highly encourage you to make your solution user-friendly, add those features, make it a rich submission. And then finally, applicability is all really about the scalability of your solution. So here we're looking at, you know, how easy would it be for other organizations to adopt your solution? Is it easy to use? How many industries or people at the end of the day can leverage what you've created? So here again, we're looking at the scalability of your solution. So I hope that helps clarify a little bit of what the judges ultimately will be looking at in your answers when you walk through that process. And then finally, I wanted to also highlight what is our overall judging process. I'm sure many of you are curious about that. So number 1, you know, April 20th is our submission deadline. The first thing we will be doing is looking to make sure that you did the bare minimum and completed all the steps. Did you submit a GitHub repo? Did you do that video? Like, you know, we've already just gone over the 4 requirements. If, you know, we have to make sure that all submissions that are considered for judging meet that minimum requirement. Then stage 2 is where we're going to spend some time looking at the submissions at this stage and seeing who is going to qualify to make it to the finalists. Here we are not selecting who first, second, third is going to be at this stage, but certainly the top winners of ones who are going to see prizes will be in this group. So again, we're looking at how thorough you were in your answers, how thoughtful were you in your answers, and just looking at all of this, all of the submissions and ranking them in quality at the end of the day and selecting them to be part of the finalist round. Once the submissions make it to the finalist round, there's two things that are going to happen. This is, where the judges are really going to dive deep into each of the projects, look at each of the 4 categories really carefully and thoughtfully, and assign a score based on the judges' recommendations on ranking all of the submissions. And then concurrently, we'll also have the most popular voting open. So any project or any submission that makes it to the finalist round will be able to go reach out to their network and get your network to vote on your submission. So what you will do is, if you make it to the finalist round, let's just say you share it on your LinkedIn account or you share it on Twitter, you will be sending people a link back to DevPost, and your friends and family or your network will just have to go to the DevPost site and vote on your specific submission. And at the end of May, we will see which project had the most votes within the finalist group. And then that person, that team, that project will win the most popular prize for that $20,000 amount. In case of a tie, in case like if your project wins the most popular and it wins like a higher prize category, you will automatically default to the higher prize amount. And the next runner up will win that prize. We all want to make sure that if you tie for both amazing prizes, that you get the one with the more bang. Finally, once all the scoring sheets are in from the judges, we're going to do a final selection of the winners based on a holistic view of all the scores that come in. I think that's the cue for you, John. I'll stop there.
All right, so I'm gonna actually share my screen, and feel free to ask questions. I see a few questions rolling in already, but throughout this, feel free to shoot some questions and we'll answer them live after this. So I'm gonna go to the live version of this, and this is gonna be really familiar to many of you as you have registered through DevPost. So just a second. And I also see some names that have been to the office hours. So hi, Max, I see you out there. And we have Vincent and some others that are in the chat. So feel free to ask questions. Some of these questions might be familiar to you because you might have asked them before. But feel free to ask those questions right now. And what we'll do is go through the submission steps. So the first thing you're going to see when you land on the DevPost Graph4All challenge is you'll be prompted with this landing page. Now you'll notice my button here is a little bit different. It's called Manage Projects. I went through the submission steps just so I could go back and run you all through these submission steps and make sure we go through each individual one. And if you have questions as we run through this, feel free to ask those questions. So this will be different. But this is a blue button that you're going to want to click when you land on the $1 Million Challenge site. And when you click on that, you'll get to this page. So it's a 5-step process. We have manage teams, project overviews, project details, additional details, and submissions. So the first page is if you haven't already found a team and you're still looking for a team, or you have a team, what you want to do is team up. And so this is the first part, is just really about managing the team. You can find people through sending an invite, or you can send them the link to join on different teams. So that's sort of the first step in the submission process. The next step is your general information. So this is where you give your project a project title. So you want to name it something enticing, something that represents your project specifically. And then on the right-hand side, you can edit a thumbnail. So if you want to add a thumbnail that represents your project, or if you created some kind of logo for your project or submission, you can do that here. And then you also want to give it an elevator pitch. So how can you represent your project within an elevator pitch? An elevator pitch is meant for, imagine yourself gets stuck in an elevator for 1 minute with somebody that's an executive or a venture capitalist, and you have 60 seconds to really pitch your idea to them. how can you pitch your idea in a short, concise way? And that's what the elevator pitch is. So you want to add a clean, concise elevator pitch along with your submission. So the next step is basic project details. So this gives a little bit of background about your project. So what inspired you to do this? Why are you working on this project? So this is where you can tell your story of how maybe you came from the biomedical space and you ran into this problem a lot. And that's really what inspired you, is because you kept running into X, Y, and Z. And this is where you can go and give that sort of background story to your project and why this is important to you. So feel free to populate out these answers. If there's other ones that you want to add, the ones that come with it are the inspiration, what it does, how we built it, challenges we ran into, and what we learned, and what are your next steps for your projects. This is all written in Markdown. So if you are familiar with Markdown, you can use Markdown to change the styling of this page. You also want to provide some tags with it. So if you're using TigerGraph as a tag, of course, maybe you're using Plotly or Dash or Streamlit or some other database services, maybe using Databricks for data science, Azure, feel free to tag those as well. And then this is where you can put a live link. Now, this is not a requirement, but many people are asking, where do we include if we want a live version of your solution running? And this is where you can put that live link as well. Lastly, we have the image gallery. So when all of the projects are being displayed in this large gallery view, this is the image that's going to be popping up. So you want something that really represents your project as well. And lastly, this is where Navira was talking about the 3-minute video. So you want to include your video link right here at the bottom and try to keep it to 3 minutes. You're not going to be penalized if you go 3 minutes and 10 seconds, or if you're a little bit under 3 minutes, but just try your best to keep it to 3 minutes as well. So once you fill this out, you'll save and continue. The next step is the additional information. So this is really important information. Because this is the information the judges are going to be using to grade your projects. So you want to spend a little extra time. Make sure that you go into details, but you're only left with, you only have 250 words. So you want to be very clear and concise about what you're saying and how you want to convey it to the judges. And so your first step is your GitHub link to your repo. And this I'll include into the chat here. So this is a template, a sample template for the submission. So you can feel free to clone this, add to it. Another question, Q&A, that I'll get to in a little bit is we have a lot of deep technical knowledge that we want to run through, but 3 minutes is not enough to convey. Well, you can use the 3 minutes to really convey why your solution is the ultimate solution for this competition. However, that doesn't restrict you from having videos or technical walkthroughs within your README. So feel free to add onto your README of more of a deep technical walkthrough if that will help the judges see from your point of view and what you want to convey from a technical standpoint. So the next part is your problem statement. So choose which problem statement you are tackling, whether you designed your own problem statement or if you chose one of the pre-populated problem statements, this is where you want to add it. And as I said before, you want to go into a lot of detail answering each individual question here. Lastly, we have just a few extra steps. If you're going for the Women Who Graph prize, you can choose yes, I declare my team is all females. Otherwise, you can just select no. And then also you will want to fill out some of the additional information regarding your organization and your schools, where you're located, and pretty much every category that's denoted by this red, you'll just want to make sure it's filled out. So once you're done with this, you hit save and continue, and you'll be at the final step. So before you submit this, one good idea is to click on this view button. So before you submit your project, you can click the view. You can review everything that you just entered here, and you can go back and edit it. So this is what it will look like once it's actually submitted. But let's go back one. So the last step is just check that you're read all the terms. after you read the terms, and hit project submitted, or in your case, submit project is what it'll say. And once you do that, your project will be officially submitted. Now, if you click that button and you're like, oh no, I totally forgot something, what you can do is go back and edit your project as well. So once you submit your project, you can click this edit hackathon submission. I would advise to try to get your submission in right away, and then go back and go and edit it. So if you want to get your submission, fill out all your information, maybe you haven't finished your video, well, you can go back and edit and add your video later. I would say the one thing that trips up a lot of people in this competition is they're trying to really get that video done at the last minute, and then they have to upload it to YouTube, and that takes maybe an hour. And it's like down to the very last minute. And then what happens is they can't get it uploaded in time. They can't get the video in there. And then they miss the deadline. So make sure you allot yourself enough time to get that video uploaded and get this filled out as well. So with that, I'm going to go back to Navira. Can you share your screen for Q&A? And again, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A tab here, and we'll get to those. You might be on mute, Navira.
Oh yes, just give me a moment to navigate back to that deck. It looks like I lost it for a second, but in the meantime, John, do you mind answering? There's a question from Max that I think you might be able to answer, and I will pull up the deck in the meantime.
All right, perfect. All right, so yeah, we have, there's a couple questions that came in. Is there a chance the deadline could be extended? Looks like Navira answered that. Unfortunately, we cannot extend the deadline just because of the scale of the competition. And it wouldn't be fair for the people that spent so much time putting their project together, abided by the rules and the deadline to move that date and time back. The other questions, well, I'll get to the rest of the Q&A. Feel free to keep populating the Q&A, and I'll come back to those at the end of this. So does the submission need to be 3 minutes? This question comes up a lot. Again, I think it's because they have so much content that you want to fill in within 3 minutes. I know it's really hard, but these 3 minutes are really to capture the attention of the judges. How can you convey that your solution is the solution that meets all these different criterias and that solves a huge problem? So it's not a technical walkthrough per se that you have to cover your whole technical solution in 3 minutes. It's really to convey to the judges. Again, you can have that video in your README if you want to have a technical walkthrough. The next question is how to submit our solution in GitHub if we use Graph Studio. That's a good question. So in Graph Studio, when you have it populated on the first landing page, there's a button that says export solution. What you want to do is hit export, and what it will do is compile all of your projects into code, and that's reproducible. So as a judge, what we can do is take this tar file that is exported. So you want to include that in your GitHub project. And then what we can do as judges, pull that and re-import it, but when we also need the data included. So the data is not exported as part of that solution. So make sure you include your data as well. How do I keep my solution running for judges? This is not a requirement for the submission. With TigerGraph Cloud, there is a limit in which the server will run for. It's 1 hour. So it's unfeasible that the server is going to be running. But that's why it's really important that you make it so your solution is reproducible. So what I would suggest is you export your solution, or you have the code in your GitHub repo. You fill out all of your README, and then you go talk to maybe a friend or a peer and have them walk through it. See if they can go through every step, that the documentation is so explicit and so clear that they can replicate it. And if they have no problems with replicating your solution, then you should be good to go. How do we include larger data sets with the submission? This is another great question. So sometimes the data files are too large in GitHub. What you can do is you can add them to, if you use Box, you use Google Drive, use S3, wherever you so choose to put them, you can include those links in your GitHub repository where the judges can pull the files. If you want to go to the next one. So can we target more than one problem statement? This comes up a lot as well. You can, however, you don't want to dilute your problem, your initial one. So it's not a quantity over quality. I would say if you're tackling one problem and it really is applicable to this problem, but then you just are like, well, let's just choose all the problems because I'm solving for everything. That's not going to improve your chances of winning. So I would say if it tackles more than one problem and it really does tackle more than one problem, then you can. Can we have multiple submissions? This is sort of along the same lines. You want to have a really quality submission. So if you so choose and you want to do multiple submissions, you can. It's totally acceptable. And if they're, I just would advise that you go for quality over quantity as well. So if I'm doing a graph for a better X, do I have to get my problem statement approved? No, you don't. It's not a requirement to get your problem statement approved. If you need some advice, what you can do is jump into our office hours. We can review your problem statement. However, I will note, if you do graph for a better X, you really want to focus in on the quality of that problem statement. You want to include credible resources that support your problem statement. So if you say, I think there's a problem here and this is why I'm building a solution, that's not a really good problem statement. So you should really back that problem statement up with a lot of resources that support your problem. And then what is everything needed in the GitHub repo? This is everything to reproduce your project. So this would be, you need for sure the README, but you need those instructions to reproduce, and you need the code or the export inside of your GitHub repository. And with that, I'm going to open it up to questions. So can I know how many people are attending the webinar? I don't know how to find that.
I think we're 20-ish, and there's I think at least triple that in terms of registrations. I don't know if that answers your question.
Who can we contact with face problem during the challenge? Depending on if you want to contact myself, I'll add my email address. If there's anything urgent that you need to ask privately, feel free to email me. Otherwise, if you're in the Discord group, we'll include the links to Discord as well, so you can jump in there. Again, we have office hours tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific time, and that's where you can interface directly with the developer relations team to answer any questions. Is it required to make a demonstration of the project in the video, or will we talk about the problem, then describe the solution? There's not a requirement to demonstrate the project per se. However, if it helps support if it helps support the solution for the problem statement you're tackling, it is advised to put it into the 3-minute video. However, it's not a requirement. I mean, you could give a really great explanation of why your solution is the ultimate solution for the problem you're tackling. And if you want to do a demonstration of the project or technical, like I said, put that in your README, just include links there as well. And then we have a question by Max. Some paid instance, we would like to have trouble. So the question's around really large graphs, and we're putting data, so you have to. So the question is, if as a judge, you need a big box to stand up your solution, that's okay, as long as it's totally reproducible. We have the resources to spin up a big instance to test your solution. One question about the repo, can we use any repo? Oh, that's a good question as well. So there are contestants that are using GitLab versus GitHub. It's totally acceptable if you want GitLab, or you can use GitHub as well. You can just take the README from the sample README that's included if you go to the main website, and if you look the graph for all $1 Million Challenge dev post, and you go down just slightly there, it'll have the sample template for the README. Feel free to just clone or just fetch the README and submit it through GitLab. That's totally okay as well. Any other questions? I think that's most of the questions.
I think there's one question from David in the chat asking, can I just copy and paste my solution URL into the submission information field?
Copy and paste. Okay, so you're asking, can you take your TigerGraph Cloud, and correct me if I'm wrong, taking your TigerGraph Cloud URL and just pasting it into the submission form? I would encourage you to, I mean, you can, but I think what you need to do is make sure your README is really really well documented, so the judges can actually replicate, because it's all about replication. And if we aren't able to replicate or reproduce your solution, then it's really tough. So I would say export your solution, add the tar file into your GitHub, and then submit as well.
Okay, and then finally, the question is, are we going to share this document afterwards? Yes. It'll probably take, what, 24 to 48 hours for you to get the recording and the slide deck. Correct, Kaylee? I know.
Yeah, we'll get it to you the end of the day. And I'll go through kind of some of the upcoming webinars to give some others a chance if you have other questions. Like John mentioned, we have office hours tomorrow. On the 15th, we have a LinkedIn Live with Joe Reese, the CEO of Ternary Data, and our VP of Innovation, JU. So come to that. You can get inspired, hear some of their discussions on graph database and data science strategies. And then on 4/16 in India, we're going to be doing a two-part series. The first one is fundamentals of TigerGraph and how to use TigerGraph for supply chain for IoT with applied singularity. On 4/28, we're going to do a webinar on the payments process, and it's around fraud. Do you know who has your money and the impact and risk on all of us? And then on 4/30, we have another fraud episode, Buy Now, Pay Later with Expiro. And then the last episode of the part 2 with applied singularity is the fundamentals of TigerGraph and how to use TigerGraph for IoT. So again, I'll see if there's any other questions that have come up. Gave you a few more minutes. Let's see. It looks like there's one more, John.
All right. So is it by David?
No, I'm using TigerGraph. The token API expires after some time. How do I keep it from not expiring?
Yeah, so for all technical questions, there's a link in the Discord, there's a link in Zoom for our Discord channel. So I would highly advise you to go there, and what we can do is help answer technical questions. And again, the office hours are tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific, and that's also in Discord. If you're in Discord, you'll see on the very top right or top left the event link. So can I share my screen, and then I can just show you sort of how to navigate that. Oops. So I'll just share my screen one more time. So this is when you click on the Discord link, you'll land in this server. So this looks a little bit familiar if you've used Slack before. On the top left corner, you can see this events, and then you can see that the office hours is starting tomorrow at 8 p.m. my time. I'm in a different time zone. So if you're interested in joining, just click interested. And when this goes live, just like we're having a session right now, the link will populate, and feel free to join on in. So that is Discord. And feel free to ask those deeper technical questions here, and we'll get back to you.
Great. Well, it looks like we don't have any more. Thank you so much, John and Avira, for the presentation. And thank you all so much for attending. And again, if you have any questions, go to the Discord in our community. So thanks again, and good luck. We can't wait to see your solutions. Have a great day.
Hi, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.